In a small presentation room, a narrator named Charlie explains to his audience about the existence of witches, evil beings who focus on harming children around the world. In addition, the presenter decides to tell his life story, beginning with the last month of 1968, when he was just a boy living in Chicago. On Christmas Eve, his family suffered a serious accident on a snowy road, and since he was the only one wearing a seatbelt, he was the only survivor. After being rescued by the authorities, Charlie was taken to the police station, where his grandmother Agatha showed up to pick him up. Excited, he asks if they can finally go home, but his grandmother tells him that from now on, her grandson needs to live with her. The next day, the boy arrives in the city of Demopolis, where Reginald helps the family remove their luggage from his vehicle after giving them a ride. Soon after, Agatha explains that she will let Charlie stay in his mother's old room, which she used when she was younger. As the hours pass, the grandmother tries to cheer up the boy with her special recipes and invites him to dance with her to her music records, but the young man shows no reaction. Realizing that Charlie is not eating, Agatha decides to tell him the truth and says that despite the great loss he has suffered, he must understand that there is a reason for everything that happens in his life. After those words, the boy becomes a little more interactive and begins to eat the cornbread prepared by the woman, who is excited to see that he is finally returning to normal. Later, Charlie is surprised by a gift from his grandmother, who gives him a pet mouse. Excited, the young man decides to name his new friend Daisy, and as the days go by, he plays with the animal, completely healing the boy of his sadness. However, while having fun with her grandson in the living room one night, Agatha was the target of an evil spell cast by Zelda, a witch who was watching them. This caused the woman to start having a coughing fit, which lasted for some time. One day, Agatha and Charlie go shopping at the neighborhood market, and after asking Raymond to get some vegetables for her, the woman helps her grandson choose the right type of nail for his construction project, since he intends to build a house for his rat. While looking for the necessary items, Charlie is surprised by Zelda, who offers him a sweet. Soon after, the woman reveals a snake from inside her clothes and asks the young man to come closer to see it better, saying that the animal is completely docile. At that moment, Agatha walks to the hallway to call her grandson, and as soon as he turns her gaze back to Zelda, Charlie realizes that she is no longer there. Worried, the boy runs to alert his grandmother about what he saw, but she asks him to wait until they get home. So Charlie waits to tell her what he saw in the corridor, and upon hearing his account, Agatha realizes that the young man has seen a witch. Believing that his grandmother is trying to play a trick on him, the boy asks her to stop, but the woman explains that this is not a joke. Agatha reveals that witches are responsible for destroying the lives of many children over the years, and so that he can understand more about them, his grandmother decides to tell him about when she saw one of these evil beings for the first time. She reveals that during her childhood, she used to hang out with her friend Alice, but one day, the young girl was stopped by a witch, who offered her candy as a gift. Although she was worried about her friend, Agatha was not brave enough to go to her and rescue her, and she left for home, feeling guilty for what she had done. However, the next day, the young woman discovered that her friend was fine and had returned home safely. Upon hearing this, Charlie asks if Alice has remained normal since then, but Agatha replies that she has not, and reveals that as the days passed, the girl began to turn into a large chicken. Since none of her friend's relatives believed her, Agatha witnessed Alice being put in the chicken coop with the other animals, and every day she went there to visit her. Confused, Charlie asks what happened after that and whether the witch left after destroying the young woman's life. Agatha then says that no witch ever leaves the lives of her victims, and upon realizing what she has just said, the woman realizes that her grandson is in great danger. Without wasting any time, the grandmother runs to her secret room, and after performing some of her rituals with her colored quartz crystals, she declares that it is time to leave. Upon hearing this, Charlie is extremely confused and asks where they will live. While gathering her things, the woman says she will call her cousin Eston and ask him to book a room at a luxury hotel, where he has been the manager for over 30 years, making it the most famous resort in Alabama. In addition, Agatha says that in that place, there will only be rich and important people, and that will keep them safe, since witches only prey on poor and forgotten children. So, grandmother and grandson set off for the hotel, and during the trip, the woman explains about the existence of witch conventions around the world. However, all the witches on the planet are led by the Great Witch Queen, the most powerful and evil villain who ever lived. At that moment, Agatha notices that they have arrived at their destination, and after asking her grandson to hide Daisy in his pocket, they head towards the lobby, where they are greeted by Mr. Stringer, the current manager. Before his guests go up to their room, the man thanks them for visiting his hotel and asks Charlie to enjoy his stay while they're there. As soon as the pair get into the elevator, a large group of women appear in the lobby, and as Stringer welcomes them, he is surprised by a cat that jumps out from behind one of them. Although confused, the manager tries to maintain his composure and explains that animals are not allowed in the hotel. However, the woman ignores him and asks what he would do if he found a mouse hiding in his hotel. The man replies that he would just try to deal with the animal as soon as possible, and upon hearing this, the women laugh and rejoice at that answer, leaving Stringer increasingly confused. In their room, Agatha and Charlie talk about the appearance of the witches, and the grandmother explains that in addition to not having hair and having to wear wigs, these evil beings are not real women, but demons in disguise. For this reason, these creatures have marks and scars around their mouths, and even if they try to hide them with makeup, it is still possible to see them. In addition, Agatha says that witches are able to smell children from a great distance, which makes the boy increasingly frightened. Despite this, the woman explains that they will be safe in that hotel, since no witch will be able to find them there. So, grandmother and grandson get ready for bed, without even noticing that they are being watched by the cat, who returns to its owner. At that moment, it is revealed that the new guests are none other than a group of witches, and after hearing what her cat has to say, the creature sits on the sofa, where she observes her demonic face in the mirror. The next morning, Charlie prepares breakfast for his grandmother, and so that the boy can have fun, Agatha asks him to go out and enjoy his day. However, the boy says he wants to do some training with his rat, because he wants her to learn some tricks. Upon hearing this, his grandmother agrees with the idea, and the excited young man sets off in search of a quiet place to train Daisy. During his search, the boy runs into Bruno, and while watching his new friend's mouse, the young man is surprised by his mother. Realizing that her son has gotten dirty again with candy, the woman sends him to his room to clean up, and alone again, Charlie enters what appears to be a kind of auditorium. Before he can start training Daisy, the young man hears a group of people approaching and runs to hide under the stage. At the same time, the army of disguised witches enters the auditorium with Stringer, who asks them to be careful not to cause any kind of fire, since that place has only one entrance and exit door. However, the creatures do not listen to the manager, and as soon as he leaves, they lock the door from the inside. Soon after, the leader announces that they no longer need to wear their disguises and orders all the witches to remove their gloves, shoes, and wigs. So they all remove their disguises completely, and Charlie begins to feel extremely frightened knowing that he is locked in with those monsters. At that moment, the boy watches the leader through one of the cracks in the stage and realizes that she is none other than the Great Witch Queen. Now that they are alone and free of their disguises, the leader reveals that she is completely disgusted, as she saw hundreds of children playing on the beach that morning. The Grand Queen then states that to end this once and for all, they must eliminate all children in the world, and upon hearing this plan, one of the witches asks how they would do that. Furious, the leader destroys her subordinate with an electric attack, causing her to be turned to stone and then shattered. After that, the witch explains that her plan is quite simple, since all they need to do is take some of their money, which is in room 666, and open a candy store in every city in the world. With these new stores, the creatures will sell only the highest quality candy possible, and they must poison it with formula number 86, which can turn any child into a mouse in a short period of time. Excited, all the witches applaud the Great Queen's plan, who reveals that a few minutes ago, she came across a boy eating chocolate non-stop and decided to use him as a test for her new plan. The witch reveals that she gave the young man a candy containing formula 86 and asked him to meet her in that auditorium in a few minutes. Thus, all the witches will be able to enjoy their first victim from the hotel, and everyone applauds the Great Queen as she flies across the room. During the celebration, the creature begins to smell something strange and approaches the stage, using its colossal nostrils to detect the source of the odor. Believing that someone is under the platform, the witch throws the stage away, but Charlie is no longer there, and at that moment Bruno appears. Noticing the boy's arrival, the Grand Queen orders her subordinates to put their disguises back on, and with everything ready, they open the doors, and the boy asks where the chocolates the woman promised are. However, the situation was nothing more than a trap, and after locking him in the auditorium, the witches watch Bruno's transformation, who had already been bewitched by the chocolate he ate earlier. This causes the young man to turn into a small mouse, and while watching the scene from inside the ventilation system, Charlie becomes desperate. At that moment, Daisy says she will help him and runs towards Bruno, leaving Charlie completely confused to discover that the animal can talk. Quickly, the rat rescues Bruno, while the witches try to crush him with their feet, but before they can escape, the Grand Queen catches up with the trio in the ventilation shaft. She immediately pulls Charlie out of the duct and applies formula 86 to his ear, causing the boy to also become a small rat. The Grand Queen then holds Charlie with her fingers and orders her subordinate to eliminate him with a sledgehammer. However, Daisy does not allow this to happen and bites the witch, allowing Charlie to escape through the ventilation outlet. Desperate, the trio of rats run through the pipes while being chased by the Great Queen's arms, and before they are captured, they fall into a hole, causing the creature to injure her fingers on the fan. After descending a few meters through the tunnels, Charlie says they need to find his grandmother, since Agatha knows everything about rats and can help them reverse this. In addition, the young man asks if Daisy is also a child, and she replies that she is, leaving the boy disbelieving. Despite this, the trio continues on their way to Charlie's grandmother's room, and after balancing each other to ring the doorbell, they are surprised by the cleaning lady, who tries to attack them with her broom. At that moment, Agatha opens the door, allowing the group to enter the room and escape from the employee, who runs away scared through the hallways. Charlie quickly communicates with his grandmother, and upon noticing that her grandson has been turned into a mouse along with Bruno, she is devastated. Soon after, Daisy appears, and after revealing that her real name is Mary, she says that she was turned into a rodent by one of the creatures after escaping from her orphanage. Tired of it all, Agatha says they need to find a way to stop the witches from continuing with their plan. Upon hearing this, Charlie reveals that the Grand Queen's room is just below them, and says he can try to break in through the window and steal Formula 86. Once he manages to do that, the young man needs to be pulled back by the rest of the group, and with the potion in hand, Agatha can try to create an antidote to bring the trio back to normal. Meanwhile, the Grand Queen watches the beach from her balcony, and as soon as they notice that the witch is storing her potion in an ice bucket, they prepare to put their plan into action. At that moment, the creature is called to join the rest of her subordinates, and with the room empty, Charlie climbs down his grandmother's woolen rope, managing to land on the floor below. Without wasting any time, the boy steals one of the potions from the ice bucket, but before he can leave, the Grand High Witch returns and begins to collect large amounts of money in a suitcase. Wanting to escape with the formula before he is caught, Charlie runs back to his grandmother's wool basket, but ends up being intercepted by the creature, who holds the object. Trying to save her grandson, Agatha appears on the balcony and claims to have dropped her knitting by accident. When she sees the woman, the Grand High Witch realizes she recognizes her face from somewhere, but before she can remember, the witch hears her doorbell ringing. Irritated, the woman drops the object, allowing Charlie to return to his grandmother, and when she answers the door, the witch receives a visit from Stringer, who gives her a cage for her cat. The animal quickly enters the cage and lies down to rest, leaving the manager excited that the cat liked the gift. Outraged, the witch orders the manager to leave, and as punishment for her cat's behavior, she says she will keep him locked up there permanently. In her apartment, Agatha tries to prepare an antidote from the composition of Formula 86, but even using her most powerful essences, she is unable to create a solution strong enough, and the liquid ends up completely dark. Saddened, the woman apologizes for not being able to help them, and Charlie tries to console her, saying that he is enjoying being a mouse, since he no longer has to go to school and can stay with his friends. In addition, the boy says that Mary and Bruno can live with them, and Agatha agrees with the idea. However, Mary says they need to find a way to stop the witches from completing their evil plan, and Charlie has an idea. He explains that he can sneak into the kitchen to sabotage the food that will be served at dinner that night and pour Formula 86 into the witch's pea soup. So, Agatha takes her grandson to one of the pipe entrances and leaves to try to talk to Bruno's parents. On the kitchen shelves, Charlie uses one of the utensils to knock over the bottle, which falls silently into the soup pot, and with his part of the plan complete, he leaves the scene. What the boy doesn't realize is that he has been seen by one of the employees, who asks someone to call the exterminator as soon as possible. In the lobby, Agatha shows Bruno to his parents, but the couple doesn't believe her, and before the boy can say anything, they run away, screaming in panic. Despite failing to convince them, the group manages to reunite with Charlie, and without wasting any time, the woman walks to the dining room with the mice and sees the contaminated soup being served to all the witches in the hall. At that moment, Stringer appears and asks to talk to Agatha, questioning whether the guest has any mice hidden in her bag. Trying to deceive him, the woman replies that she paid too much for her stay to be treated that way, and starts screaming, saying that the manager is just trying to make her look guilty for the poor cleanliness of the hotel. Upon hearing these accusations, Stringer is embarrassed, and after apologizing to his guest, he orders one of the butlers to give Agatha one of the tables in the lounge, and she decides to sit near the exit. After that, the Grand Queen appears on the scene and sits down with all the other witches, who begin to eat the contaminated soup. At that moment, the leader of the witches spots Agatha on the other side of the hall and walks towards her, saying that she remembers her as the friend of Alice. the little girl taken by the queen long ago. Realizing that this is indeed the witch responsible for transforming her old friend, Agatha becomes enraged, and the Grand Queen begins to mock her. However, the conversation is suddenly interrupted when several of the witches begin to turn into rats, and taking advantage of the leader's distraction, the trio steals the key to her room. As a result, more and more witches turn into rodents around the hall, scaring all the guests, who run desperately while Agatha watches the situation calmly. Outraged by what is happening, the creatures begin to destroy everything, and at the same time, all the cooks appear to attack them, causing enormous chaos throughout the hall. At that moment, Zelda, who was trying to crush her own colleagues, ends up transforming as well, and falls on top of Stringer, who panics as he is bitten in a painful place. In order to stay safe from the commotion, Agatha decides to leave the hall with the trio of rats, and together they enter the Great Queen's room. Without wasting any time, the group gathers to get rid of all the bottles of Formula 86, and when they notice that their grandmother has dropped one of the potions under the bed, the trio rushes to retrieve it. In doing so, they notice that the Grand Queen has already caught up with them, and before she can hide, Agatha is surprised by the witch, who prepares to eliminate her with her claws. However, the young rats do not allow this to happen, and while Mary and Bruno set a pair of mousetraps at the monster's feet, Charlie jumps toward her. Due to the excruciating pain in her feet, the Great Queen screams desperately, and thanks to this, Charlie manages to throw the bottle into the creature's throat, which ingests all the liquid. In a few seconds, the leader of the witches takes off toward the ceiling, and after the collision she is quickly transformed into a rodent. This causes the witch's clothes to fall on top of Charlie, and he is quickly rescued by his friends. However, before they can leave, the trio notices that the Grand Queen has turned into a different kind of rat, with a larger and stronger body. In a panic, the young people try to escape under the bed, causing all the mousetraps around them to be triggered. As soon as they reach the other side, Bruno ends up getting his tail caught in one of the traps, allowing the witch to capture him, but this makes no difference, and Agatha quickly imprisons the monstrous rat in a glass bucket. After that, Charlie hands the key to the witch's suitcase to his grandmother, who is impressed by the amount of money the creature had saved. In addition, Agatha finds a book containing the addresses of all the witches in the world, along with a huge stockpile of bottles of Formula 86. Excited, Charlie says that with all those resources, they will be able to hunt down all the witches scattered across the planet and turn them into rats so they can keep children safe. This plan makes Agatha increasingly excited, but before they leave, she sees the cat trapped on the balcony and has an idea. The woman then decides to free the animal from its cage, and realizing that it has a chance to take revenge on the evil rat, the cat goes to her. After removing the books from the bucket and clearing the way to its prey, the cat finishes off the witch alone, and without wasting any time, Agatha leaves with the group of rats. The next morning, before leaving, the group tries to convince Bruno's mother once again, but the woman just keeps screaming, so they decide that the boy should stay with them. Thanks to this, the trio now travels on a mission to various locations around the world, hunting all the witches they encounter along the way. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.